All right, everyone, the highly anticipated Robert Sarver expose has finally dropped. A new racist white rich billionaire has been discovered. A couple weeks ago, there were rumors and reports of a huge expose that ESPN was working on that was basically exposing Robert Sarver and really the Phoenix Suns organization at large of being, racist, misogynistic, and just overall a really place to work at. And today we finally got that expose. It's finally out. I read it multiple times over the past couple of weeks. The hype train was building that this was finally going to be the smoking gun that was going to force Robert Sarver to sell the Phoenix Suns. If you've been following basketball or really following the Phoenix Suns at all for the past decade or so, you know that Phoenix Suns, dating back for as long as I can remember, have wanted Robert Sarver to sell the team. They think he's a cheap piece of shit. And the hope was that this article was going to be what finally did him in. And after reading over it multiple times, I just don't know. Now, Woj has come out since this article has been posted and has said that the NBA is going to quickly open up an investigation into these reports. And is it possible that the NBA finds something in their investigation that forces Robert Sarver to sell the team? 100%. I just want to say, though, that it is very difficult to force an owner to sell the team. Very, very difficult. The NBA needs a 3/4 vote from other owners across the league in order to force somebody to sell the team. And while I think Baxter Holmes did a really good job in this expose, he has a ton of sources, 70 plus sources in this thing. I honestly don't think it's a smoking gun. I'm going to be 1,000% honest with you. And this article is a little bit messy. But let me be very clear. There's some very serious stuff in here. Some very serious allegations, which if proven to be true, which is the next step in the process, is proving some of these allegations and having concrete evidence that this stuff happened, then there might be grounds to force Robert Sarver to sell a team. 100%. Part of my issue with this expose is these serious allegations are just kind of sprinkled in this huge article where there's just a bunch of other shit that just really does not matter in the grand scheme of things. Let's start with the stuff that does matter, okay? The blatant racism. This is how this article kicks off, right? An ongoing back and forth, really, between Robert Sarver and former head coach Earl Watson. This exchange happened after a Golden State Warriors game. Why does Draymond Green get to run up the court and say the N-word? Sarver, who is white, allegedly said, repeating the N-word several times in a row. You can't say that. Watson, who is black and Hispanic, told Sarver. Why? Sarver replied. Draymond Green says N-word. You can't fucking say that. Watson said again. This is the classic white conservative argument when it comes to the N-word. Well, they can say the word in their songs. They can say the word in their rap music videos. I'm allowed to say that. You probably have an uncle who says similar things to this, right? Obviously, for an NBA owner, this is inexcusable behavior. And this isn't the only instance in here of Robert Sarver using the N-word. Here's another example. These N-words need an N-word, Sarver told the staffer of his largely black team, according to the executive. Sarver again cited race as the reason the team needed to hire Watson as head coach in 2016. A former Suns basketball executive said a young black coach could better relate to black players, Sarver reasoned, and could speak their language. This was in reference to the Suns hiring Earl Watson before they hired Earl Watson. Now, Sarver was very quick to deny. Sarver has already released multiple statements about this article. He was very, very quick to deny using the N-word at all. Sarver denied Watson's characterization of the incident. This is absolutely untrue. I remember the game and topic clearly. I, of course, never used the word myself during this conversation. I said N-word without saying the full word. The word itself never crossed my lips. Let me be crystal clear. I never once suggested that on that night or ever that I should be able to say the N-word because a player or black person uses it. I, of course, never use the word myself. This is funny because he directly contradicts himself later on in another statement where he says, yeah, well, actually, I did say it. Sarver did acknowledge using the word once many years ago. On one occasion, a player used the N-word to describe the importance of having each other's back. Sarver said through his attorneys, I responded, this text is super fucking small. I responded by saying, I wouldn't say N-word. I would say that we're in the foxhole together. An assistant coach approached me a short time after and told me that I shouldn't say the word, even if I were quoting someone else. I immediately apologized and haven't said it ever again. The N-word has never been a part of my vocabulary. There was more stuff throughout this article about black coaches, black staffers, and even some players feeling as if there was some racial undertones in some of the actions that Robert Sarver took. Even more from Earl Watson, who thinks there's some racial motivations to his firing. Sarver was super upset with Eric Bledsoe. That led to a sort of tiff between Sarver and Rich Paul, obviously of Clutch Sports, who represented Eric Bledsoe. And Rich Paul said something like, this isn't tennis, this is basketball, like a dig at Robert Sarver. A pretty good dig, I have to say. And Earl Watson was represented by Clutch Sports. I don't think he was represented directly by Rich Paul. This led to a whole event where Sarver basically told Earl Watson, you have 10 days to decide whether you want to coach this basketball team or whether you want to be represented by Clutch Sports. This is one of the things in the article that paints Robert Sarver as a complete and total fucking asshole. I don't think there's a smoking gun here in regards to the Rich Paul Clutch Sports drama. The usage of the N-word, that is something that is, if it is proven, could definitely lead to the league stepping in and forcing Sarver to sell the team. The issue is, though, there has to be a recording a la Donald Sterling of Sarver being racist, or an email a la, who is it, Bruce Levinson, the co-owner of the Hawks, when was that, like 2014 or something, when he was forced to sell the team after racially insensitive email surfaced. And if they don't have that, I have a hard time imagining that this is going to lead to much. Of course, he sounds like a fucking asshole here. I don't really have too many reasons to not believe Earl Watson, but unless there's some, you know, again, unless there's like documented proof, I just don't know if this is going to be enough. Let's get to some of the other, you know, really damning stuff, which is like sexual assault within the Suns workplace, misogyny, and the HR department. Which, honestly, if I were to say anything in this report could lead to something, it is the way this HR department sounds like it's ran. It sounds like a complete and total debacle. It seems semi-easy to prove and could honestly be grounds to force to sell the team. The way that this is all explained, okay? One female former employee said that after being physically assaulted by a male coworker outside of the office, a female coworker went to HR out of concern for the employee's safety. The two told ESPN that HR spoke with the alleged victim, ultimately deciding that simply moving her desk would resolve the issue. At that time, the alleged victim said there were 2 rows of desks with partitions separating each one, and that hers was right next to the male coworkers. They moved her to the second row. I couldn't escape, she said, adding that if she stood up, he was right there, probably less than 10 feet away. It was a joke, an absolute joke. And this seems to be a reoccurring theme throughout this article, is that the HR department basically acted like the secret police, where they didn't do anything, and in many instances ended up going directly to Sarver with some of the complaints employees had. On multiple occasions some years ago, according to people with direct knowledge of interactions, employees reported alleged issues to HR, including a complaint against Sarver for alleged comments to a female employee about how she looked in a dress, and alleged racial discrimination raised by a black employee regarding promotions for a white colleague, and were told soon after that they no longer fit in the organization. See, this is the stuff to me that is really fucking bad. Multiple staffers said they would not go to HR with complaints because they feared retaliation. That is standard in our company, said a current business employee. If something happens, don't go to HR. Said another current staffer, God, no. That's the last place you go. Yeah, definitely don't go to HR with anything. The first former Suns HR rep confirms this sentiment was common throughout the organization. You want to do right by the employee and make sure that they're not getting infringed upon, the first HR rep said, but ultimately you're getting paid by the owner, so you're the police. And there were some times where I told people, you know, I'm not going to tell you this on record, and we need to go out to the parking lot or someplace, but I think you should sue. You're the police. That's the last thing you want to hear from your fucking HR department. When aggrieved, workers said they had been considering legal action after being told that the organization would be parting ways with them. 2 former business operations employees said those people were often offered severance packages in exchange for signing non-disclosure agreement. The second former HR rep said this approach was common. The organization would settle when an employee brought any sort of legal action, threatened to sue, or raised issues that could lead to legal action. They didn't want the press, the former rep said. There were people that were wrongly terminated, and then the people who had the know-how to threaten to sue would get paid. But the ones who just couldn't maneuver that landscape would just go away. And those are the things, right? The racism, the sexual assault in the workplace that gets basically brushed under the rug, the HR department acting like the secret police, people getting wrongfully terminated and then silenced. Those are the things that if the NBA can investigate and prove, that definitely is grounds to force a sell, I think, at least. But even then, I'm not entirely sure, because remember, it was only a couple years ago that bombshell report against the Dallas Mavericks came out that there was rampant sexual misconduct within the workplace, and Cuban knew about it and just brushed it under the rug. Remember that fucking story? You probably don't, because that story got brushed under the rug within a week. I'm just trying to get the point across that it is very difficult to force owners to sell across sports. They have some of the best job security in all of jobs. So Suns fans and other NBA fans who look at this as a smoking gun, I'm not so sure. And part of, you know, my gripes with this article is that those very serious allegations that I just touched on are just kind of sprinkled in with all of this other random shit that more so just paints Robert Sarver as like a fucking Michael Scott character more than somebody who should be forced to sell an NBA team. Is he incompetent? Yes. Does he seem like a complete and total asshole? Yeah, 1,000%. But I would say like 80% of the stuff in this article is just, I don't know, like just dumb fuckery. Like this right here. Early in his tenure as owner, Sarver once tried to impress upon employees how big of a Suns fan he was and how excited he was to lead the organization, blah, 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 blah. In one meeting to drive his point, Sarver passed around a picture of his wife in a Suns bikini. Multiple former longtime employees told ESPN. One former executive who was in the meeting said, "We were passing it around like a hot potato. Like, what in the hell are we supposed to do with this?" I know it's not funny, but the reason why I laugh is I think most of us have worked for or are under a manager or owner who behaves like this in some way, shape, or form. I remember once I had a manager at one job I had that showed me a picture of his daughter and was like, huh? Showed me a picture of his fucking daughter. And I was like, dude, what am I supposed to say to this? There was another crazy one about Sarver basically talking about how he has to use Magnum condoms because his dick is just so huge. Like, oh, come on, man. Oh, and then his legal team came out and said, this is not true. Robert Sarver does not use Magnum condoms. His dick is not that big. No, I'm just kidding. They didn't say that. They were basically just like, no, he never talked about condoms. Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be funny if, like, Robert Sarver came out and was like, no, I never said anything about Magnum condoms. My dick is small, guys. I can't use Magnums. Then you have other stuff, like some of this stuff here about him, you know, trying to be a hands-on owner and being awful at it and drawing up plays in the locker room. Like, there was a whole huge section of him, like, trying to be a coach. I was like, all right, I just read several paragraphs about him using the N-word and people within the workplace thinking that a lot of what he does is racially motivated. And now I'm reading about how he was drawing up plays in the locker room that would have resulted in an offensive 30 seconds. Like, this just doesn't feel, I don't know. It just didn't hit me really. Sarver instituted unusual and frequent demands, former coaches and basketball operations staffers said. And during part of that 2018-2019 season, he told Okoskov's staff that they shouldn't hold pens, papers, notebooks, or anything in their hands on the sideline. They had to stand and cheer. It was a clown show, said one former basketball operations staffer. Guys are jumping up and down, looking ridiculous, and I'm getting texts from coaches around the league. What are you guys doing? It became more of a circus, and let's stand up and clap and appease Robert, as opposed to doing what our job actually is, which is trying to coach a basketball game. And then there's a link to this fucking video. So you guys have probably seen this video. I remember this video of the coaches just like fist bumping each other, and they literally look dead. Like, it looks like there's just nothing going on in those eyes. Again, this is funny. I mean, it's just asshole behavior and competency, yes. But there's nothing here that is about that even comes close to being forcing him to sell the team. There's nothing here. Former Suns account executive David Bosden said that in August 2014, Sarver pantsed him in front of more than 60 employees at the team's ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. A former senior basketball staffer and a former senior marketing employee confirmed this account to ESPN. In the aftermath, Bosden said, an HR representative smirked and said, please don't sue us for sexual harassment. See, like, that's bad. You can't pants people in front of 60 employees. Can you imagine the fucking embarrassment? Can you imagine? And this just ties it back to Sarver. It just seems like he just comes off as this Michael Scott character who just has no filter. He just has no fucking awareness at all of what's going on around him. Like, I'm trying to think of a situation where a boss thinks it's okay to pants an employee in front of 60 other employees. Again, we're going to see how this all plays out. And I'm sure, you know, there have been multiple statements released already since I started doing research for this video. Sarver and his legal team have released statements. I'm not going to lie. I'm not reading that shit. What's the deal with the spacing in this, huh? Like, what's going on there? Why is it that anytime a law firm releases a statement, it looks like they have zero clue how Microsoft Word works? Like, they just have no idea what's going on. There is stuff in this article that could force Robert Sarver to sell the team, if proven, 1,000%. But I don't know if it's a smoking gun that a lot of people think it is. We're going to see. We'll see what the NBA investigation looks like. It's very possible that the NBA is like, oh, yeah, we're going to investigate, and then it lasts a couple weeks, and like, oh, it's fine, or it just drags on for years, and then it just kind of goes, you know, forgotten about. Because a lot of this article just paints Sarver as a fucking asshole. Like, just a douchebag asshole. And is that going to be enough for owners around the league to vote him out? I'm going to be honest with you. Probably not. Because guess what? These dudes are all mostly white billionaires. They're all fucking assholes. They just all are. Let me know what you guys think about this, because there's some terrible things in here, but there's some hilarious stuff. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Some of the stuff I read had me laughing, had me actually laughing out loud. Not because like I thought, oh, that's funny, Robert Sarver doing that is funny, but just because the ridiculousness of this entire shit. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, goodbye.